Hey guys, we have set up the groundwork. Now we are ready to start moving on with our movie application. First, let's take a look at our movies.json file and check out what we find there to work with. If you're not familiar with JSON, this file may look a little bit confusing, but it's actually pretty simple. Remember how we built a task array in the last section containing the attributes of each one of the tasks? This is no different. The whole file describes an array of movies. Every movie is a hash containing several attributes, which represent the properties of the model. Let's pick up the first movie in the array and take a look at its attributes. We have a title, an ID, the original title for foreign movies, an overview attribute containing the movie synopsis, a poster path attribute containing the name of the file that corresponds to the poster of that movie, and many others, including some nested attributes like genres. If you pay attention, you'll notice that the genres attribute is an array in itself, and it also contains multiple objects in it. In other words, each movie can be associated with multiple genres, and this array contains the list of those genres. I know, it's a fairly complicated model, and maybe it contains more information than we are actually going to need. But this is intentional, and it will be a very realistic example of how data is handled by real API services and how we'll put those objects to use in AngularJS. So let's get to it. First, we need to know how to import this data into our application. For that, we're going to use a new service called the $HTTP service. The HTTP service provides a layer on top of JavaScript's XML HTTP request and allows you to make asynchronous HTTP requests and retrieve data from a server. In other words, it makes AJAX calls. So let's include the HTTP service to our controller and use the get method to request the contents of json/movies.json. Then, if the get method succeeds, we're going to execute a function. That function will get the retrieved array as a parameter called data. So let's get that data and put it into our scope. Let's create a new variable on the scope that will contain our movie list. Let's call it scope.movielist. And let's assign the data to it. Now the movie list is available in our scope. Let's go back to our index.html and print the object as JSON, just to make sure that what we've done until that point is working. For that, we'll use an expression, print the value of movie list and then add pipeline JSON, so AngularJS knows that it should apply the JSON filter on the data before printing it. The JSON filter basically turns the JSON object into a string, so it can be printed as text on the template. Now, go back to your browser and check it out. The movie list is successfully coming from the movies.json file and being printed on the page, meaning our HTTP request was successful. There is only one little problem to be noticed here. If you're running your Angular application in a web server, being it a node server that we learned to set up using the npm start command or any other, this information will show up for you. But if you're opening your index.html file directly on Google Chrome, it's possible that you get an error when you try to load the JSON. This happens because of Chrome's implementation of something called Same Origin Policy. The Same Origin Policy is a browser restriction implemented in all modern browsers for security reasons, and it forbids your application to directly access files cross-domain. In Google Chrome, however, two files loaded into the browser directly from the local disk are considered cross-domain, and you get an error. You can avoid this error by either using a local server or using Firefox or Safari instead of Chrome. Now let's go back to our index.html and let's make this into an actual gallery. First, let's add a few bootstrap elements to organize your page. Let's create a div container and inside of that another row div. This will wrap our application into a responsive container. Let's then create a well div. Then let's add call sm10 and call xs12. Those classes are basically telling Bootstrap that our container must occupy 10 out of 12 columns of the grid system in small screens and beyond. But in very small screens like cell phones, it will take the entire width of the page, or all the 12 columns in this case. Then let's add another row, and finally, the div that will contain our movies. Let's name it movie container, and let's add the classes call sm2 and call XX6. And that will tell Bootstrap that we want 6 movies per row on computer screens, but only 2 on cell phones. Finally, let's add the ng repeat directive, movie in movie list, so we print our movies one by one. Now let's add the actual poster. We want the movies to be clickable, and clicking a movie should take you to the details page. So let's add a link. We can leave the href blank for now and add the class movie thumb. Inside that link, let's add the movie title as a heading and the image, that is the poster, as a thumbnail, img responsive. Then we add the src of the image, which will be img/posters plus the movie poster path. Pay attention to the fact that inside of our img posters folder, every poster has a random name, and this name is instantiated in the movie.posterPath property. Now you can go back to the browser and check that it's working. Okay, it doesn't look very good yet, but let's ignore this for a moment and take a look at the console. If you look at the JavaScript console, you're gonna notice an error indicating that the application failed to load the resource, specifically an image called img posters and a lot of this stuff. This error is caused because when Angular first loads the page, it loads the templates first, and then it processes the directives. When the templates are loaded, the browser thinks this expression is a real link, so it tries to load the image, and only afterwards AngularJS replaces the expression with the real link. To avoid this from happening, let's get back to index.html, and instead of using the src attribute, let's use the ng-src directive. The ng-src directive works exactly like the src attribute, but will not cause that error. Go back to the browser, reload the page, and the error is now gone. Okay, now we actually have a movie gallery, but it looks kinda ugly. Plus, we have too many elements being showed on the same page. On the next video, we're going to add some more CSS and also add some pagination to our gallery. See you there.